Hello and welcome to the Global Summit on Economic Abuse. Today's session is called Empower Finance, Reimagining Banking to Prevent Economic Abuse in the Asia Pacific. My name is Ryan Burke and I am a member of the World Bank team who is leading out our work on financial abuse across Asia and Pacific and soon to be other regions as well. Today's session may be confronting for some people, so if at any point you do feel uncomfortable, please feel free to take a break or reach out to a support service which you can find in the No More Global directory. So a little bit about the World Bank and IFC. So the World Bank is the largest development institution in the world and works across emerging markets. And the IFC, or International Finance Corporation, where I work, is the arm of the World Bank that works with the private sector in those emerging markets. For the last year, we have been working and collaborating across the Asia Pacific region on an initiative called Empower Finance. And that is really about supporting banks across the region to take action to address financial abuse. Globally, financial abuse is one of the most common forms of domestic and family violence, and the implications and scale of this type of abuse have the potential to affect all financial institutions. Financial abuse involves the misuse of financial products to financially harm others, another individual, and it occurs when an individual uses financial products such as bank accounts, loans, consumer credit, and debt, and so on, to control a partner or family member or to gain something for themselves and benefit from access to that banking product. So as the owners and architects of these products and services, financial institutions have a really important and preventative role to play. They are uniquely positioned to address this issue and protect customers and their overall portfolio and banking industry. And so through Empower Finance, IFC has been bringing together institutions together with global experts in financial abuse to share information, good practices, tools, and solutions to better protect their customers and financial institutions. And so we're very excited today to be able to share the progress over that last 12 months with you as it's been an amazing opportunity to collaborate across a range of countries and a range of institutions who are doing some phenomenal work. And so now that I've shared a little bit more about Empower Finance, I would really love to introduce our panel that we have here today. And so what I'd like to do is ask each of our panelists to share their name, their role, their organization, and maybe one unique thing about their country. So Pranisha, I might start with you.
Hi, Ryan. This is Pranisha Shrestha from Nepal. I'm representing NMB Bank. I head brand and marketing and CSR as well as GC initiative lead from the bank. I have 18 years of experiences in banking. And yes, one unique thing of Nepal is this is only a country who does not have a rectangular flag. We have a two triangle replica our flag, and it represents the mountains. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you, Pranisha. Megan, I might ask you to introduce yourself and one interesting thing about the country where you live.
Sure, thanks, Ryan. So my name is Megan King. I am a lawyer that works in the pro bono team at Norton Rose Fulbright, which is a international law firm. I've worked for a long time as a lawyer, but a large part of that has been working in the community space with victims of financial abuse. Then I've been working at Norton Rose, where I've pivoted a bit to not be working with individuals, but more working with the organisations in the space who are wanting to make some real change in preventing financial abuse and building projects that involve the banks as well. And I'll tell you an interesting fact, sort of flowing on from the flag theme, that the Australian coat of arms has a kangaroo and an emu on it. And the reason that they were chosen to represent the Australian coat of arms is because neither of them can walk backwards. So it's meant to be a symbol of us as a forward-thinking nation here in Australia.
Wonderful, thank you, Megan. And Sharon, finally over to you.
Thank you, Ryan. So my name is Sharon. Punao is my second name. I am from Papua New Guinea. My role, I'm the Group Head of Transaction Monitoring for BSP Financial Group Limited. I am also the Joint Money Laundering Reporting Officer for our organization. An interesting fact about Papua New Guinea, and I think it's all over Google, but it still stands out because we have about over 800 plus different languages in our country.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. Papua New Guinea is definitely an incredibly diverse country with the many different peoples and the languages. So Sharon, in terms of financial abuse, we've been working together for a little while now. And we introduced the concept of financial abuse to our Empower Finance collective. I was just really keen to hear maybe what resonated with you about the topic, and maybe even considering all the different language groups in Papua New Guinea, maybe share a little bit more about how that could in fact impact financial abuse.
Yeah, so we began our journey with IFC through the Empower Finance initiative, and I was privileged to attend the workshop with the banks in the Asia Pacific region that was in Thailand, where we discussed this very important and interesting topic in great detail. We also explored with other banks what we can do to protect our customers who use our products and services. So the role of the bank in mitigating financial and economic abuse is very crucial, and that's where we really sort of unpacked that during that session. Yes, we do look out for all forms of abuses, but not to taking that next step into really identifying financial abuse and what it's doing to a person. And so like the role of the banks in mitigating financial and economic abuse is very crucial. And that's my take from that. So we can serve as a strategic disruptor, and that's essentially by implementing safety by design principles across all of our products and services. And it's critical to responsible banking, finance, and also consumer protection. Now, everyday individuals are victims of financial and economic abuse. In developing nations, this challenge is intensified by the high social issues that we have, and including elevated crime rates and a legislative system that is often not yet matured enough to address and contain such issues effectively for our people. And this topic resonates with me because whilst the challenge to addressing this issue remain within each of our developing countries in the Asia Pacific region, there are organizations that are able to lead the way by playing a critical role in providing awareness on this issue through their products and services, at the same time slowly changing the behavior. So financial and economic abuse is an integrated global problem, and it needs all stakeholders to work together. So when we mitigate and prevent financial and economic abuse, livelihood of our people will improve. Financial freedom allows for our people to grow, and overall community and economy will prosper. So that is why this topic resonates with me.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. I think some really interesting points that you made there around financial abuse can impact anyone. Anybody can be on the receiving end of those types of behaviors. And particularly in developing market context where there are those added layers of complexity that play out. I think it's been very, very interesting, particularly working in Papua New Guinea with you and the team around some of the different initiatives that you've implemented. So Pranisha, how about you? Why is it important for your bank to take action and to be involved in financial abuse?
Thank you, Ryan. At the NMB Bank, we really believe that finance has a power to transform life, right? So, but only when it's built on trust, inclusion, and responsibility. So taking action against the economic abuse was not a social initiative for us. So for NMB is what responsible banking stands for, is safeguarding our customers' financial well-being was our topmost priority. So when bank take the proactive steps, we are doing three things simultaneously. We are protecting our most vulnerable customers. We are strengthening our institutional integrity, as well as demonstrating that accountability and care can coexist with profitability. And that's what NMB Bank, Sustainable Bank represents, I guess so. Yeah, in Nepal, where financial independence, especially for women, is still evolving, I'll say, our role is more critical. And by addressing the financial abuse, we ensure every customer can bank safely with dignity, as well as our product tools for empowerment is more focus, not control. For example, we also shared when we were having an Empower Finance and financial abuse session that in a senior citizen, we have modified our product. So it's basically we have given a choice to the senior citizen where they are not push sell, but we have a digitally accessibility choice for them, so that preferences for mobile internet banking are given as an option if they want or not. So I think that is one of the action that has taken our transaction banking and really for building the trust regarding their own care. So I think these are the cases that has taken our action into why NMB is going more on the financial secured stability and on the path of financial abuse.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pranisha. Yeah, I think it is really interesting, particularly the focus on different diverse communities like elderly individuals and more mature individuals, women,
Yes.
and really, I guess, thinking about financial abuse in the context of their experience. So what's happening, how do they manage their banking, how do they manage their products, and what are the social things that sit around those individuals? Megan, you've done some work across the region as well, across the Pacific and with many different banks. Maybe if you are comfortable to comment on some of the things that Sharon and Pranisha have shared, but also thinking about really the banks. So what happens when banks take action? What are the positive impacts of banks taking action? And then maybe conversely, maybe the negative impacts if they don't take action.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think, Pranisha, your comment that finance has the power to transform life, that spoke to me quite a bit, because what I think has happened in Australia in particular at the moment, that even in the last 2 to 3 years, there's been this real realization about money and financial abuse being such a driver of other forms of family violence as well. And people have been connecting the dots a bit in terms of how important it is to respond to financial abuse. It's no longer sort of a lower ranked form of family violence that can be ignored. In Australia, a couple of years ago, there was this real push for the safety by design principles to be implemented. And most of the banks did respond by changing their terms and conditions to say that our products are no place for financial abuse, and we may essentially debank you if we find that you're weaponizing our products and services. So I thought this was a bit of a momentous shift in terms of banks really stepping up and saying no more, we're going to be taking action. And I would like to hope that this is going to become a deterrent for perpetrators in the long run, that it will actually reduce instances of financial abuse. But obviously, this is early days. We haven't seen the impact of this yet, but I do think the early signs are promising. And I think as well, both Sharon and Pranisha, you've spoken about this as well, that you are strategic disruptors. You can create that sort of friction in the system to try and prevent financial abuse. And I think that's what communities are expecting now from banks. There has been a big shift over the last 5 to 10 years. Banks are essential services. People need to use them. So much of people's lives go through the banks and their products and services. So there's that real expectation now that banks are going to act to prevent abuse, but also to respond to it as well. But as you said, Brian, there are many negatives also to not acting. And one of the big ones is the cost. So I've seen instances of financial abuse that would be in excess of $10 million, and none of that money is able to be recovered from the victim survivor or the perpetrator. So if a bank can step in early and prevent millions of dollars of debt being racked up, that's an obvious financial saving. Also the time that banks spend responding to financial abuse in their products, responding to complaints that are made by regulators, their legal teams having to spend time trying to unravel everything that's happened. That's also a significant cost. But I think the biggest cost, the biggest negative of not acting is the human one. People can just be devastating. I've seen this myself in the years that I've been working with people. It devastates people's lives. They can lose everything and they can never recover in some cases. It's a form of abuse that often goes hand in hand with emotional abuse as well, sometimes physical abuse. So if banks are responding, if banks are preventing it from happening, the saving of that human misery and harm is significant. And I do also think, I mentioned this earlier, but to have a strong reputation, to prevent a poor reputation, to prevent complaints being made against you, and to really build that trust and integrity in the general public's eye, banks need to be seen to be taking a lead on this. In Australia, there are two banks in particular that have been really sort of leading the way in Australia, and sort of the other banks are following behind. And I would like to hope that this will continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the role of banks, particularly around that prevention piece, to stop things from escalating even further, is really critical. But they need to start somewhere, right? They've got to start with awareness. They've got to understand, like, what is the issue and how does it play out? One of the things that we did learn through Empower Finance is, yes, financial abuse can happen within intimate partner relationships, but also other types of relationships across communities, across maybe the elderly, people with disabilities, other vulnerable populations, and particularly with the overlay of some cultures having reciprocity or cultural obligation where that can play out. And so the behaviors and the motivations can be a little bit different sometimes. So sometimes it's not about just power and control. It could be about somebody benefiting financially from a situation and taking advantage of somebody else, which is quite an interesting nuance across the region that we've really been able to dig underneath. So Pranisha, in terms of fact finding and really understanding the issue, what steps did you take to learn about financial abuse within your customer base and within Nepal?
Right. I told you before also, that was one of our biggest challenges. And maybe I'll take it as a very significant learning opportunity for us, because we quickly realized also there is the data on the financial abuse in Nepal is almost non-existent. So our first step was to listen. Listen to whom is that? First to we make sure that executive committee knew what financial abuse is, because it has to go from top to bottom, right? So then we had an executive committee meeting. Then we said that we wanted to introduce financial abuse in the bank itself first. So we conducted an internal focus groups with our employees, customer facing teams. We also reach out to civil society organization and women advocacy groups also. So what we heard was really eye-opening for us, because financial abuse wasn't always visible, but it was like a hidden agenda where in the forms like controlling over the joint accounts, restricted access to the basic savings, or misuse of the digital payment. And these were, I think, the real system gaps that we found, I think, in the overall banking scenario in Nepal. When we had a group discussion also, we got to know about that. And these insights really gave us a very clear message that understanding the lived realities behind these numbers was non-negotiable. So we started in the organization with the empathy-driven awareness. As you know, that the essential foundation for all of our solution were awareness program, first of all, to whom we provide to our employees. We launched a e-learning financial abuse port, so that now it's like our BAU. In every 6 months, every employee has to go through that, so that even if the people move out, move in the organization, have to know about the financial abuse. And we also included this financial abuse program to the FLP programs of our, which is our one of the regulatory programs from the Nepal Rashtra Bank, which is all the banks are governed by them in their directives. So this reaches a huge mass. And this is one of the achievements that we as a bank take as a pride after going through this Empower Finance session and regarding the financial abuse. The next thing is we are also focusing on the women entrepreneurs because that is one of the segment which is very vulnerable towards the financial abuse. So we have reached around 1,500 women entrepreneurs already, and this will be the ongoing process for us also. Another example that is regarding not only the internal, but we are also co-partnering with different organizations who so that we can also learn about financial abuse as well as make them notify about the financial abuse. Ryan, this is how we are
Yep.
taking the
Yeah,
data into the impact.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's amazing to have that sort of broad reach out into your organization, so going up and down and across, but then also externally as well. And I think having the voice of a CSO or community services organization, I think is really key. And it's been one of the vital things that we've done as part of Empower Finance. And I think most banks have really gained a lot from talking to community organizations and learning from them. But it's probably a two-way street, actually. I'm sure the community organization learns a lot about banking, working with banks as well. Megan, from your experience working with community organizations across Australia, what have you learnt through that work?
Thanks, Ryan. I've learnt the power of collaboration. It is so effective to align legal, banking, community services, civil society organisations together to really understand what are the key drivers, what are the red flags, what are the roadblocks to implementing new programs or reforms. And so I work with a range of clients in my role. So from legal services, the people on the ground seeing the individuals, to those bigger nonprofits that are trying to establish new programs to help victims of financial abuse. So one client in particular I'm working with now, they're wanting to establish a new nationwide service for victims of financial abuse, because often one of the issues can be, where do these people go for help? Or they need intensive legal help, they need financial counselling, they need a lot of different professionals coming in there to help unravel what's happened to them. So they're wanting to establish this new service, but what they recognise, which I think is really quite clever, is that this needs to be done in collaboration with the financial services sector, with our taxation office, with the regulators in Australia, so that what they develop is actually effective, what they develop can assist these victims. So the advisory network that they've set up has the majority of Australian banks on there, and I'm helping them work through some of the questions that keep coming up. Well, can we do this? Can we do that? And we'll provide that legal advice for them to try and keep this moving along. One of the big sticking points we've got in Australia is our privacy legislation that can prevent banks from reporting financial abuse to third parties. But the biggest lesson that I've taken away from the last couple of years of working in this space has been the importance of working inside the tent, so working with the banks and not against them. I guess there's often this sort of view, all the big bag banks, and they're not going to want to do anything that's actually going to cost them money or lead to positive change. But what I've learned is actually no, banks are really wanting to come along on this ride. They're putting significant investment into reforms and into trying to combat financial abuse. So they're keen to collaborate and to work with civil society organisations to drive change.
Yeah, wonderful. Sharon, in my last visit to Papua New Guinea, I actually got to visit one of BSP's partners, Belisi and the Business Coalition for Women. I was wondering, would you be comfortable to share a little bit about that relationship that you've got with Belisi and what that's been like working with them? And maybe share what Belisi is, because it may not be known.
Yeah, so thank you, Ryan. And so Belisi has been a very important partner to BSP for a while now. We have been in a long-standing relationship with them. since 2019, and Belisi is an NGO in Papua New Guinea that addresses family and sexual violence issues and promoting safe and financial practices. Since 2019, we had that arrangement with them. So how it started, our organization commenced a focused initiative in response to a noticeable increase in absenteeism and staff resignation. And most of those were categorized under personal reasons. And so the question came as to, we needed to look deeply into as to why we were receiving such statistics. So analysis revealed that the turnover rate among women were disproportionately high compared to men. And many affected employees were either too ashamed to seek assistance, and they lacked trust in our organization's support mechanisms following experiences of domestic violence that they have faced, or family sexual violence within their own family. So these issues, they still remain deeply prevalent in Papua New Guinea to this date. And so most of those issues are seen as viewed as private matters. So recognizing the need for institutional intervention, BSP offered, like an example would be that we offered one of our properties as an emergency accommodation for staff members who are fleeing domestic violence. But through the support of the Business Coalition for Women, the bank collaborated with other organizations, including Belisi, to establish a multi-sectoral steering committee comprising of representatives from both public and private entities. So that's where, to your point, Megan, we had, that's the power of collaboration, public and private partnership. And so the committee was tasked to develop a streamlined approach to case management and safe houses services, ultimately aimed at engaging survivors to retain. The objective was to retain employment while accessing the necessary support to rebuild their lives. So it was focused on the staff of our organization. So as part of the broader commitment, BSP were one of the 3 companies that participated in the cost of business baseline endline survey as well with Belisi, finding that the studies revealed one company had experienced a financial loss of 3 million due to inadequate response mechanism to FSV-related issues. So all of that put together, there was an importance, the need for forging partnership with the local and international organization became very sort of obvious to us that we had to go down that path. So we are a key partner and a subscriber to Belisi PNG. It's a public-private civil society partnership, and it's dedicated to mobilizing the private sector to take transformational leadership in addressing FSV, So the Belisi PNG provides case management and safe houses to our employees. It equips business leaders with the tools to foster meaningful change within our workforce and our communities. And importantly, Belisi PNG directly addresses the rising costs and the organizational impact of FSV on companies, including us. So to date, we've referred over 200 staff members and their dependents as well to Belisi for case management. And so these services include like facilitation of protection orders, safe houses and accommodation, counseling, welfare assistance, and other form of psychosocial and legal support. So through this intervention, many survivors have maintained economic stability by continuing their employment at the same time, rebuilding their confidence in a supportive work environment like our organization.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Sharon. It's an amazing partnership and such a valued service that many organizations, many companies sign up to. So it's been great to see that you've been able to refer people in to get the support that they need to be able to rebuild. Yeah, wonderful. And Sharon, what about if we flip back to financial abuse? Was there anything that surprised you? You know, you've been working in this space a little while. Was there anything that surprised you in terms of any of the discovery work that you did around financial abuse, maybe in the transactions or other customer behavior?
Yeah, so Ryan, you know how we did conduct the survey. There's 2 lots of surveys that because we needed to really understand the how deep the problem was, and especially our understanding of financial abuse, financial and economic abuse. So There is a degree of awareness within the corporate financial industry regarding the identification of abuse. Staff are generally willing to assist where warning signs are recognized. However, the ability to look beyond the immediate signs of abuse still remains a relatively new concept for us. And so we need to go through that process of constant awareness and training for our staff first to equip us so that we can be able to sort of view financial service. I mean, when we are talking to our customers or when they're using our products or through the communication that we have with them, if we don't understand it well ourselves, then we won't be able to pick up those kind of warning signs. So through the initial stages, we sort of through our group focus discussion, we identify several concerning cases for financial abuse. So things like pensioners did not have access to their bank accounts. Elderly or vulnerable customers were not in control of their own bank accounts. Customers have taken out loans and used their bank card as collateral, often handing over their PINs to the money lenders, card and PIN. And then once they give the card, they go and stand in line and apply for a new one. And so that sort of increased our request for new cards. And we're trying to understand, like, where did that come from? And so all of these pieces started to come together, and instances where customers were coerced by intimate partners, people that were supposed to protect them, to take out loans out of fear of violence. And so like the processes are geared up to address the customer experience, I'd say, but it does not look deeper into the issue of abuse. And that's the change that we are working together in trying to implement here within our organization and hopefully right across the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the findings that you found around those behaviors of the money lenders and then the PINs, I think understanding how that behavior plays out will help you then find a solution or put in place mitigation to address that. I think one of the interesting things, Megan, which I think you've done a bit of work in, is around data. So banks have lots of information. We can look at transactions. You've got addresses, all of this type of stuff. What's your perspective on that sort of fine balance between sharing and using financial data as a tool for support while maintaining privacy and maybe confidentiality? Could you comment on that a little bit?
Yes, yeah, definitely, Ryan. It's something that I've looked into quite a lot. And I think there's a distinction here between, so banks hold a gold mine of data about financial abuse and how it presents. And with AI, that's just going to get even more detailed. So that data right now is not really freely available to the public. And we had a financial abuse inquiry by our Australian government last year, and it did actually recommend that banks share and release this data. And I think that would be really helpful to guide the responses for civil society organisations, for the banks themselves, to see where is it presenting the most, what groups, is it older people, is it in intimate partner relationships, how does it differ from scams? Because that's also something that people get confused with. What's the difference between a scam and financial abuse? So I'd love to see more data out there about that. But then there's also that individual customer data. So what is happening on an individual's accounts? What documents were used to apply for a business loan? And that becomes a really tricky area where you're trying to balance an individual's right to autonomy, an individual's right to make poor decisions. Yeah, I've worked with clients where they're well and truly aware that they're being financially abused, particularly older clients, but they're allowing it to happen and they don't want it stopped because the abuser is often their closest and only relationship. So if that financial abuse stops, that relationship stops, and then they're isolated and lonely. So people often choose to continue to be in a financially abusive relationship because there are other reasons why that they're staying in that relationship. So we can't stop people from that personal decision. But then I've seen the real pointy end of financial abuse where you have people who either lack the capacity to speak up or make decisions themselves, or people that are being coercively controlled by a partner. And so there are instances where and banks want to be able to release information about what's happening there. They want to be able to release data on that person's accounts to the police or another third party like an adult safeguarding agency. But because of privacy restrictions, often they can't. So I've been working with our pro bono clients to try and see some change in this area, to try and get some exemptions in our privacy legislation that where a bank sees that harm happening in their products and services, and where that person is unable to speak up themselves for a variety of reasons, that the bank is able to release that information. So I think that's something that will happen down the line. In the UK already, banks are able to release information about somebody if they think that there is a threat to their economic well-being. So that's actually in their legislation, the term economic well-being. That's, again, in cases where that customer lacks the capacity to sort of seek help themselves. But I would really like to see if, and that's what also my firm is investigating at the moment, how is that being applied in the UK? Is it having an impact? Is it effective at preventing and responding to financial abuse? And if it is, I'll be working with our pro bono clients to see if we can try and get that reform happening in Australia. So yeah, look, there's a lot to this topic, and I could keep talking, but I will stop.
No, it's fantastic. I think the fact that it's getting this focus is so important, and I think working at banks and in law firms, I think data is really key to finding solutions and also motivating action as well. One of the key things that we did as part of Empower Finance was to actually ask bank staff who are participating in Empower Finance around what were they observing in the community and also for customers around financial abuse. And we received responses from over 7,000 7,000 bank employees across 7 banks in 8 countries. So we've got a really amazing data set that will help us sort of lay the foundation to hopefully move to quite progressive work like what you're talking about, Megan, around sharing data, transactions, and a whole range of different mechanisms. And so this data is really important because it doesn't exist across the region it didn't exist until we asked the question. And it's been able to provide Pranisha and Sharon with the baseline data to go back to their bank to say, this is happening, we need to pay attention. And so within the community, what we asked bank employees was, what behaviours are you seeing in the community around financial abuse? And we found 46% of people said that they knew somebody in the community experiencing financial abuse. And the top 3 behaviours were household money decisions being controlled, bank cards or PINs being taken without permission, and income, bank accounts, credit cards, or other assets being controlled. So some pretty fundamental ways to control somebody, but really restrict their ability to participate and function within society. We then asked those employees, what were they seeing in their customers? So are they seeing financial abuse in their customer base? And we found 51% know a customer who were experiencing financial abuse. And this is pretty fundamental because when we think about 50% of customers every day, if you think half of those customers are presenting with financial abuse or some type of financial abuse, it's a pretty significant amount of response that needs to happen within the bank. We then asked, well, what are the top behaviors that you're seeing in your customers? And what we found is that online banking was being controlled without their knowledge. They were prevented or discouraged from holding a bank account, pretty fundamental, particularly across emerging markets where access to money is such a fundamental thing, I guess anywhere really, but particularly in emerging markets where people need access to banking. And they were also pressured to deposit their income into another's bank account. And I think this goes to Sharon's comment before around money lenders taking control of people's bank cards and PINs and so on. And so this data is incredibly important for us because we now have a baseline of information that we can now go to other regions across the world and emerging markets to share this information with them to say, let's get on board and start to take action. Because we also asked, what were bank employees' expectations of their own bank And what those employees shared with us is that 80% said that they want their bank to do more to support customers experiencing financial abuse. And then we also asked the bank employees themselves, what would they like to learn? And 84% said that they would like to learn more about how to support customers. So really strong, compelling data to say, it's happening, bank employees are dealing with it, they don't have the resources or the knowledge or the capacity to deal with it properly, and they expect their bank to take action. So this data has been incredible for us to be able to give us that baseline, but also support the business case for IFC's clients and partners around addressing this. And so the way that we worked with banks across the region and in Empower Finance was to educate them on the financial safety by design principles and process. And it's a very simple methodology that we're working with the banks to implement. And it's not a one size fits all. It's very customizable to every bank situation, because it's about understanding how a product is misused through listening to CSOs, frontline customers, understanding what are those behaviors, then thinking about, well, what risks do they pose to your products and services? And then embedding those into the way your products and services are designed. And then from there, communicating that acceptable behavior to customers. And Megan, you mentioned the update to terms and conditions, and that is one way that those expectations could be set. And that obviously is always underpinned by customer and employee support. So Pranisha spoke to training, getting the C-suite involved, getting them aware, really fundamental, important pieces of the puzzle to start to be financially safe and start to design products in a very safe way. And so the banks who have been part of Empower Finance have taken many, many actions and done some really great things. And Pranisha and Sharon, I'd really be keen to hear from you both around, what are some of the things that you've implemented? So Sharon, maybe we could start with you around BSP and sort of where you've come from, where you are now. What are some of the things you're working on?
Okay, so thank you, Ryan. So our organization does understand the importance of responsible banking, and whilst we have in place processes to address all forms of abuse, as I explained earlier on by our staff, our organization is currently in its early stages to combat financial and economic abuse for our customers. So with the help of IFC through Empower Finance, we have conducted 2 surveys for all our businesses, which we received the results. We have created a tentative action plan with IFC and Empower Finance, and to unpack the level of understanding from staff on financial and economic abuse. We also conducted high level of awareness with our frontline staff, identified change champions from within our organization, and we also developed an in-house monitoring tool to monitor transactions that will pick up any forms of abuse by our customers. So the next steps will be obviously to review the action plan that was provided and agree on and set deadlines. Develop internal policies and procedures is what we're currently undergoing. Sort of enhance the training and awareness material, like the e-learning platform that Pranisha spoke about. We also need to launch awareness and training for our staff as to how to identify financial and economic abuse and how it can be addressed or escalated. And more so, we are also going to implement our transaction monitoring tool as a first step. So like I said, Ryan, it's early stages. We're taking the necessary steps, but carefully taking that steps through that journey with your help and obviously with the help from IFC. So thank you very, very much for the time that you've spent with us.
My pleasure. And it's a very big first step. You're doing a lot. So yeah. I think you should pat yourself on the back. Pranisha, how about you and NMB?
Yeah, in collaboration with IFC and this Empower Finance Financial Abuse Program, we have started embedding the financial safety principles directly to our broader strategy for responsible banking. And we are still learning every day. If any confusion, we always go back to Ryan. At the strategic level, we also have partnered with UN Women. So to integrate the gender equality and financial safety with our inclusion agenda, because that is one of the agenda that NMB Bank has always been doing from the past 5 years. Women in the women leadership programs also we have done. So we are only the bank who have 7 provinces where all the women-led branches has been launched so that they can be also financially independent on taking their own decision, because in this Asia Pacific region, that is also one of the mindset, as Ryan said, that the control over the household is only limited to the as a woman job. So this is something agenda that we have been taking as a NMB bank for in a forefront. And operationally, we have initiated transaction monitoring RFP. So that will be a very significant step towards identifying the patterns that could indicate the potential misuse as well as the financial control within the customer accounts. So this will be a huge milestone that we are looking forward. And also, the response has been genuinely inspiring across the board for us, because at the executive level, they have been very incredibly supporting for us, because they have started recognizing this as a matter of institutional integrity, risk management, as well as the customer trust. On the part of the employees also, they have shown a very real ownership, because for them also it's an eye opening, because it's similar to the lenses that we had when we were very initial start of this program. So it also gives a maybe a wider lens of our survivor safety that we always talk about when we started with this program. And feedback from the customers, that is women entrepreneurs, CSOs, after, has been also very rewarding for us, because they see this is not as a campaign. And generally, we also believe that it's a cultural shift for Nepal, because it's a signal that bank can be powerful force for safety, respect, and empowerment in the community. So this is how we are doing across the board, Ryan.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Such good work. And it's been really inspiring to see the amount of activity that's happened across all the members of Empower Finance, but particularly organizations really taking a lead and driving this work. So thank you from me for all the incredible work that you've done. It's inspiring to see. So Megan, if we think about, we've spoken about what we're doing internally, but maybe if we think about the broader industry, I'm sure that there'll be people from different roles, different organizations. What other opportunities do you see there for action around financial abuse? What would be your message? And maybe if you'd like to throw to Sharon or Pranisha after, just to share, what would their advice or guidance or one last thing to say to the audience around getting involved in financial abuse?
Sure. I think the biggest opportunity I see now is that, and I think Sharon, you mentioned this, the public-private partnerships in this space. The data shows that somebody experiencing financial abuse is far more likely to go to their bank first than a lawyer, the police, any other sort of help. So the bank is the first port of call. And it's a great opportunity for the other organisations trying to support these people, the civil society organisations, to partner with the banks to see what change they can bring about together. And what I'd also like to see is the banks thinking about funding some of these partnerships, putting some resources behind them so that they can assist those victims of financial abuse in a way that's also beneficial for the bank as well. So that realization of the cost benefit analysis of financial abuse, I would like to see that to become a bit more sophisticated on both sides. But obviously the work that IFC has been doing, the work that Sharon and Pranisha, you've been doing in your respective countries, I think has been really inspiring to see how quickly this can be picked up and momentum built. So I think Australia, perhaps, before I came into this conversation, I thought, well, maybe we're a little bit further along in that journey. But I think that you're making great gains in both of your countries as well. So, yeah. I'll throw over to you, Sharon. Perhaps you've got a learning for me or something that you can pass on.
So I guess for us, Megan and Ryan, because it's very early stages, as I've mentioned, and There are several very key challenges that really hinder effective action from our perspective, and so that is why it's part of the journey that we're taking. Like the fear and uncertainty is one. Some staff, they hesitate to help customers experiencing that because they're concerned about their own safety. If they walk out the door, what's going to happen to them? Unclear procedures and potential repercussions, and it can pose risk to themselves. So that is why our action plan that we've put together, we've got to have those foundations in place. And so for us to effectively move forward with that, these foundations need to be set apart from the transaction monitoring piece that I spoke to. But for us, it's learning. It's learning from people like Pranisha and all the other partners that we've joined, and trying to see where some of my strengths will be theirs and some of their strengths will be mine. And that's the kind of journey that we are sort of experiencing together. So Megan, for me, it'll just be more learning. It's more learning for us.
Yeah, wonderful. Pranisha, how about you? What sort of final message would you like to share, maybe about your own experience or NMBs, or even advice for other people?
Ryan, I think from us, I'll speak on behalf of NMB as well as personally. Take this opportunity really to walk through this journey truly about redefining what responsible banking means. That is one thing that I've really got an opportunity to learn from this, as well as, and I think this is an opportunity because we like 6-7 groups was in this forum, but it's an opportunity to design your system with empathy, awareness, and as well as shared accountability, right? That will help us move forward, one step forward, maybe to for making the finance more equality on the basis and empowerment, as well as especially for women, as well as vulnerability community across Asia Pacific. And we got to learn so much, and come join us in this journey, I'll say that. And being part of NMB and making an awareness will always go forefront for regarding the financial abuse awareness. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And sorry, Ryan, if I just may add, like I stated,
Sure.
in the bank, we can really disrupt this process. We don't necessarily need to always wait for some serious big legislative changes to happen. And so it's this small step, like if we mitigate and prevent financial and economic abuse, we know that livelihoods of our people will improve. So it is very, very important for us to, I guess, take that that interest and that extra interest into knowing what it is and trying to be aware of financial abuse that's happening right around you and question. And that would just be my encouragement to, everybody, because, culturally there's challenges there, but if it's abuse, it's abuse. And we need to be able to identify it, and we need to be able to address it.
Absolutely.
I think, Ryan, one point to be added is that we were zero when we started. We never knew what was financial abuse. Now, we take as a pride that each of our employees at least know what is financial abuse. And if something, just a normal thing happening in the market, and if something they trigger, they at least report that, okay, this might be one kind of financial abuse. Financially independent is also one of the knowledge that we are giving to our own employee as well as our next future generation, that we also spoke in the last session, that we will be giving and session to the undergrad people, so that from the beginners, they will be knowing what financial abuse is, so that they never have to face at any point of their life that they cannot be financially independent. They don't have that feeling of they are controlled by anybody else. So that is their right of humanity, that they know what is the financial right for themselves and what is right for themselves. And I think that is our job as a banking or a financial institution, to notify them from the initial part of their life. At least you know what is the financial abuses, what is the financial control of being your finances. Your house, you don't limit yourself only for the household, you also invest on something, and you do a financial control beside the household. So these are the fundamental learnings that we are learning from this program, as well as we are passing on to the next generation, I guess so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would like to thank all of you for joining the panel today. And it's been an absolute pleasure working with all of you over the last couple of weeks to pull this together. And the work that you're all doing is brilliant. And I think if everybody does play their part in this work, we will start to see some pretty significant changes. So thank you all for joining, and hopefully the audience enjoys this presentation. Thank you.